What's good, y'all? It's your boy Sean P. the Blunt guy. Hey! And we are back with another One Piece reaction. Today we will be reacting to Den Kushi, and he is going to be telling us about how Franky is connected with the MADS science group, right? Now, before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Comment down below your thoughts. Let me know, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What did I perhaps miss that you might have caught, right? Also, follow me on Twitch so you can catch me live and you can engage with me in real time. If you want to connect with me directly, then follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And join the Discord. Make sure you guys are part of the Discord. Come be a part of my community. If you want to be part of future discussion streams, or if you want to submit other content for me to react to, I have a channel there designated specifically for you guys to submit stuff for me to react to. And if you just want to link with me, right, that's usually where I'm the most active at, is going to be the Discord. All of these will be in the description box down below, as well as the link to the video we will be watching today. And let's get into it. So, all right. So Hyde is telling us about Franky's connection with MADS, right? The science group consisting of Vegapunk, Queen, Judge, Vinsmoke Judge, and I'm almost forgetting Caesar. I almost forgot who that other person was. And there's also a mysterious woman who is also part of it, as we've seen in the cover page of, I want to say, chapter 1070, either 1070 or 1069, one of those chapters. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so there was a woman on that cover page who was in the front with all the other members of MADS. We don't know if that was, some people speculate that could have been Stussy, or it could have been Sanji's mom or Judge's wife, right? So it could have been one of those two. No confirmation yet, so we don't really know, but you know, those are the speculation. It could also be another character that we aren't aware of, but those are the two top speculations that I've heard. You know, let me know what speculations you guys heard as far as that woman who's part of MADS. I'm curious to hear that. But yeah, so Franky has a connection with MADS. Now, you know, I don't know if he does, right? I don't know where this theory that we're about to watch is going, what the connection is. Is it just like, is it a connection like maybe Franky has somebody he's related to that was part of the MADS group, or is it just maybe some looser connections, right? Like, we know that Franky was sent by Kuma to Vegapunk's home island, like his hometown where Vegapunk is originally from. And Vegapunk used a lot of the blueprints and a lot of the stuff that was left in that lab, not only to upgrade himself, but possibly to learn other stuff, right? To become a better engineer that we know Franky to be. So I believe Franky's love for science and inventing things and building things, I think that's a connection in itself with MADS, right? We know that MADS was a bunch of scientists. Franky's a scientist. So, you know, I don't really know what further connections they have, but we are going to definitely get into this theory. So let's do it without any further ado. All right, let's go.
This video covers Franky's parents and their connections to MADS. It's possible This video covers Franky's parents and their connections to MADS. It's possible MADS were likely a pirate crew, or at the very least a fleet, and we're going to be exposing some of their secrets in this video. So make sure to like and subscribe, free tickets to a comment.
Alright, so okay, so now I got a clear understanding of where Den Kushi is going with this theory. It's Franky's parents that are connected with MADS, right? So that's going to be Franky's connection is through his parents. Possibly they were members, right? Like we know on that cover page with the MADS members, it was only 5 of them, right? It was Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge, and Queen. Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge, Queen, and there was the woman that we don't really know of to be, right? So those are all the members that we know of, at least. We don't know if those are all the members in general, but those are the members that we know of. And if those are indeed the only members of MADS, or at least as far as the main scientists, because we also seen there was some other guys behind the upfront members, right? So yeah, I mean there were other members, but they were just like nobodies, you know. So maybe Franky's parents were not big members, like maybe they weren't the primary members of MADS. I don't know. Let's see.
Anyway, let's go. Franky came from the technically advanced South Blue via reverse mounting at 4 years old, roughly 30 years ago. Exactly 30 years ago before the present day in One Piece is the year 1492, which in real life is when America was discovered by Columbus. There are plenty of connections to America through Franky, such as what we see with the hamburgers and fashion sense, etc.
Man, Den giving us history lessons. All right, okay, I'm down with it, bro. I'm down with it. But I never really looked at the timeline, right, of Franky's arrival at Water 7. I honestly forgot or missed the fact about Franky being from the South Blue. So, you know, it's good to get refreshed. That's one thing I love about these theories. Like sometimes some of the small details, you know, of certain characters, sometimes they get lost because, you know, we watch so much One Piece, learn so much more information, creating so many speculations. Sometimes it's easy to forget little details such as Franky being from the South Blue, because I definitely forgot about that. I know I definitely forgot about that. I don't know if any of you guys remembered. Let me know if you remember that Franky was from the South Blue. But yeah, that's definitely one thing I forgot.
But we'll focus on that another time. So if you think there is a deeper reason for Franky's connection to America, let me hear your thoughts down in the comment section. I'll make sure to include them in the next video. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. It's wild. So he pretty much said the year that Franky pretty much came from South Blue into the Grand Line and its lobbies, or Water 7 specifically, was the same year in America, right, in our history, was founded by Christopher, quote unquote, founded by Christopher Columbus, right? So, and Franky being the member of the Straw Hats that represent America. So that is a pretty interesting fact, right? Franky being the Straw Hat that represents America. You know, his favorite food is burgers. So interesting fact. So maybe Oda was intending, maybe he had some intentions with having Franky come from the South Blue to Water 7 the same year that Christopher Columbus found America, you know.
Anyway, on with Franky's history. Franky was the 7th member to join the crew, which ironically happened at Water 7, the island of shipwrights. He was found on the scrap island by Tom when he was a 10-year-old kid, assuming he'd been abandoned by his pirate parents. Tom saw him using a cannon that he'd fashioned from scraps lying around. This is something most kids would not be able to do. Also, the cannon was not a typical cannon either. As you can see, it has a very strange design or appearance. It looks like the design was influenced by the fact it was made from scraps. From observing Franky's mechanical and technical prowess and adding the fact he was thrown overboard near Water 7, builds a case that Franky spent his childhood around technology, potentially an advanced pirate ship with his parents. We see evidence of this in the cannon he made, and we also saw his love for...
Yeah, that is a good point, and definitely I did a theory before about Franky. I feel as though it was Dindin Kushi's theory. I don't remember. I don't remember whose theory I did, but somebody was talking about Franky. And they pointed out that Franky's parents must have been savvy with technology as well. Seeing how Franky was pretty smart from a young age, right? It's not like he knew how to build things before Tom even got to him, right? Before Tom discovered him, he was already pretty smart in that sense. So he had to learn this from somewhere. Unless Franky's just some freaking prodigy that just came out the womb knowing how to build things. So I think it is reasonable to speculate that Franky's parents had to know how to build things as well. And they were to some degree scientists as well. The last theory that I actually covered talking about Franky and his is the potential of his parents' history was about them being from the underground, though not necessarily MADS, but the underground. And I don't really remember whose theory that was, but yeah, I remember them pointing that out as well. Like Franky's parents had to be savvy with technology.
For weapons technology. Again, recently when Franky saw Vegapunk's beast mechs, he appears to have these advanced skills before becoming an apprentice for Tom, who then trained him to be a shipwright. It's worth noting that Tom's abilities lay strictly in boat building, and he was not particularly known for any particular radical science. Obviously, he's been involved in some stuff, but that wasn't his forte. It was Franky who has been shown to have more of a focus on weaponry. Overall, you could say...
Yeah, that is a good point. I never actually... I never thought about like Frank, like Tom, like not being able to build, like create stuff like weaponry and stuff. Cause Tom was just a shipwright, right? Like he just built ships. Where Franky might actually be he might actually be better than Tom when it comes to building in general. Cause Franky could build ships, but then he can also build things like weapons and stuff. Where Tom, as far as we know, Tom can only really build ships. I don't know if he could build like weapons for ships in the sense that Franky can, but like, I mean, I guess could he build a cannon, a basic cannon? I mean, how do you build a cannon? I mean, I think that would be more like smithing and everything, but I don't know.
Say he fused his own knowledge with what Tom taught him, resulting in the battle Frankies. As we can see by the designs, we do not see Tom teach him any of this weaponry or technology. If you look a little closer, you can also see each battle Franky is numbered, another trait he has independent of what Tom taught him, a theme we see with many MADS members' scientific creations such as Vegapunk's satellites. Some of the more obvious examples are Judge and the Germa and Caesar's experiments. You've got the pacifistas as well. A few cases some may have missed, however, are Water 7 with the numbers stated pretty plainly on the outside of each dock, and we know the city was built over a previously destroyed one.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to numbering your inventions, I don't think that's necessarily like I don't necessarily think that would be like a trait that just somebody like Mads would have, right? Like I think any scientist or any builder that builds something and they build multiple things of that thing that they create, right? They usually number them. You know what I mean? Like when you look at weapons like guns, they usually have serial numbers, right? So you can identify that specific gun, or you can identify, like, look at cars, right? Like a car, cars have I think they have VIN numbers, right? A car will have a VIN number, which is a number that identifies that specific car. Like every car has a VIN number. Like some of them are in like the door. Like when you open your driver door. They're like on the panels or something, and they're usually placed like different locations in the car. But yeah, like cars have VIN numbers. Anytime you buy a piece of technology, there's usually a serial number. Even like when you buy like a bottle of water, right? Like there's usually numbers somewhere to identify that specific bottle. I would think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't really see it. Yeah. Well, you got the barcode, but I don't know if each barcode is uniquely different. But yeah, I'm going off track. But yeah, so it would make sense that like Franky would number his ships, because then it gives you an identifier, right? It helps you identify that specific ship. So each of his battleships would have numbers. When they create the pacifistas, right? Like all the Kuma pacifistas, right? They all had numbers that said PX0, PX1. It's, it identifies a specific model, right? So I think that's just a common sense type thing that people that create or build something, or it doesn't even have to necessarily be like technology. It could be anything, right? It has an identifying number, so partially because it, like in real life, it helps when if there's a problem with that item, you could go back, you could trace it back to the people who were involved with passing it, right? Like, so if let's say if this water was contaminated by something, and I called the people, they could track it back to whoever bottled it and whoever passed it off, So yeah, I think the numbers are just a common sense thing, so you can identify the specific seraphim or the specific PX model or the specific ship that you create,
In some shots, we also see a 5 and a 6, which is the Gomu, and also in one of the panels, there's Doom written above that. This might also tie into Wano, seeing as Wano is made up of 7 islands. The giant numbers are also in Wano, failed experiments whose name also act as their number. Kind of weird how Franky's home is similar to the Shogun's palace too, right? But anyway, back to the point. By looking at these numbers, we can see a connection to MADS. We can even look at other characters, for example, Dr. Hobback, since he was a genius scientist and he numbered his creations. Additionally, there's a connection between Franky and MADS through Queen. We see Franky and Queen do similar poses on this volume cover, and the name of some of their moves do match. They also have the same blood type, and we've not really seen them interact in the story yet, so maybe Oda is saving that for some MADS reveal.
You know something? If Queen comes back into the story, if Queen does come back into the story, I think it would be pretty dope if Franky fought Queen. Like if Queen comes back as a antagonist, right? I think it would be dope if Franky fought Queen. Just like right now where we're at in the story, right now in the last chapter that we were on as of the time of me recording this was chapter 1071. And we know that Zoro and Kaku pretty much clashed, 2 guys that they fought. I think it would be better, right? I think it would give us something different if we're going to have another CP0 versus Straw Hat fight with Kaku and Lucci fighting the Straw Hats. I think it would be better if Zoro fought Rob Lucci, and then maybe Brook fought Kaku, just to give us a little variety, right? So then we can see how Zoro matches up with somebody like Rob Lucci, Luffy's old nemesis, and how Brook would add up against somebody like Kaku. Because most people don't think Kaku could be a good matchup for Zoro anyway at this point. A lot of people think Zoro's going to wash Kaku. So maybe to give Zoro a better matchup, have him fight Rob Lucci, and then have Brook fight Kaku. Because I would think Kaku could give I think Kaku would give Brook a good fight personally. So, but going back to my point about Queen, right? If Queen comes back into the story, they should let Franky fight Queen. I think a Franky versus Queen fight with with Franky pulling out a mech. Maybe Queen has a mech somewhere. I don't know, but even though Queen's a big dinosaur, so I don't think he would need a mech. But or unless he had like a dinosaur mech, that'd be pretty wild right there. Have like a dinosaur mech. But yeah, like see how Queen's technology or see how Franky's technology matches up with Queen. I think that would be an interesting fight. A way to if Oda brought back Queen and put him into a fight, that could be a good fight. A good fight right there.
Reveals later. Other recent characters we can look at are Stussy and Dufeld. In the chapter 1069 cover story, we see how the MADS fleet was potentially being funded by the underworld, in this particular case with Lufeld as the benefactor. Only a chapter prior in 1068 we saw Stussy apparently reminiscing about the past and being familiar with Vegapunk's technology, particularly his traps, while also respecting Vegapunk's genius and skill, implying they have an established relationship already.
You know something? I actually never caught that, right? I actually never caught Stussy. Like, that's something I must have missed when Stussy said, of course, I haven't been here in ages. I completely missed her saying she haven't been there in ages, because this whole time I was thinking maybe Stussy has been on Egghead recently. Government business, of course. So the fact that she hasn't been there in such a long time, it's like, what was her business there long ago? Right? Like, it makes sense if she was there recently because the Seraphim, like maybe she had to pick up the Seraphim or go drop them off or whatever. So the Seraphim makes sense. But if she wasn't there till like long ago, and I don't really know how long ago Vegapunk like got to this island, like when Vegapunk moved to this island, because we know he was part of Punk Hazard, and then Caesar did what he did at Punk Hazard, and I guess people had to evacuate. So I assume Vegapunk had to leave Punk Hazard, and then maybe eventually he settled in Egghead Island, right? So I would assume that he went to Egghead Island after Punk Hazard. So, she had to be. I would assume Stussy had to be there after the whole MADS things done split. So I don't think she was at Egghead Island as a MADS member. So, I don't know. I would think this had to be after Punk Hazard at the very least.
Also respecting Vegapunk's genius and skill, implying they have an established relationship already. By the way, remember this panel? In the attempt of taking the Tama tobacco, she kills Lufeld and says, "My dumb dead friend." This familiarity suggests she was once friends with him in the underworld as well, or at least knew him, so you can see it's possible Stussy too.
Bars. See, now I really am starting to be sold on Stussy being part of MADS for real. I'm starting to be, because that's a good, that's hey Den. Hey, shout out to Den for pointing that out. My dumb friend. We know Dufeld was the loan shark for MADS. We assume that Stussy might have been part of MADS. So that means as a MADS member, she would have had contact with Dufeld at some point, right? She would have met him. She would have seen him a few times, maybe, at the very least. Hey, I'm starting to be on board with this idea that Stussy was a mad scientist.
It's connected to MADS.
But my pushback on why Stussy wouldn't be a member, why Stussy wouldn't be a member of MADS is, I guess based on seeing Rob Lucci's backstory, right? His backstory and CP9's backstory, or it wasn't really a backstory, but we seen like a mini flashback of them training as kids to be agents. I always assume that CP Cypher Poe agents, especially when you're looking at the higher tier Cypher Poe agents like CP9 and CP0, I assume that they would always, like, they trained them from childhood, right? like that would make sense because it would make it to where they trust them. Because if you bring into if you try to turn somebody who's already an adult into a member of CP0, you can't brainwash them that easily, you know. So I would have thought Stussy would have been a cipher pope or at least a trainee of CP0 or maybe CP9 at one point. You know, maybe CP0 agents consist of agents from other CP branches that are just elite, right? That prove themselves to be elite. So I would think that she would have trained as a agent, or she would have been trained by the world government from a young age. But if she was a MADS member, right, before being a CP0 member, then how does that happen? Unless she was always a CP agent, like a CP agent, and then she went undercover as a MADS member, and then eventually went back. Like, I don't really know how that one works. You know, I don't really know because I don't know if it's really been confirmed that every CP agent were trained from kids. You know, but based on that Rob Lucci flashback that we seen with him, I want to say all the other CP9 agents that we seen, like the guy with the zipper mouth, the one say Chapapa, him. I think maybe Bluno we seen in that flashback. Yeah, I thought they were trained from kids, so I thought that would have applied to Stussy as well.
And you do failed because he was directly funding the group. Franky also has ties to this underworld. That's where Franky got the Adam Wood to build the Sunny. Anyway, MADS member Vegapunk probably has the strongest connections to Franky out of all of them. For example, the star symbol on Franky's arm. Franky is often wearing a shirt with one, and it could be found on his technology too. This could be a nod to Vegapunk, as we've recently seen stars on his work, like with the holographic dragon and the seraphim. We saw that Vegapunk uses the same star in some of his creations, right? Which is kind of like his trademark. Why do I say that? Well, the word Vega is the name of a real-life star, the biggest in the constellation of Lyra. This constellation has one main star with several satellites, similar to Vegapunk. Also, the suffix punk ties to punk themes we see across MADS, like their designs and dress. Why is this significant to Franky though? Well, because those stars appeared on Franky's arm after he used the scraps found on the ship to rebuild his body, suggesting it was Vegapunk scraps he used. This might all be tied to Franky's inherited will, hence why Franky was sent to Karakuri during the time skip. Also, peep this, Oda is really inspired by Akira Toriyama's work, Dragon Ball, and actually owes his success with Shonen Jump to him. After all, it was Akira who told Shonen Jump to take on Oda after already refusing his work. I recently started a rewatch and I couldn't help but notice some similarities. Both Franky and Bulma have the blue hair, both of them have a very advanced knowledge towards building machinery and technology, both of their creations have numbers on, both of them have this relationship with an old genius inventor.
Hey, I'm saying, Din. I think you're looking too much into the number aspect as like any evidence of like the support, like your argument. I don't think the number argument is good evidence, because I believe that most scientists would number their inventions just to, like I said earlier, in order to give that invention an identifier. You gotta, numbers tend to be the easiest, right? Numbers tend to be the easiest. So I think the whole number thing is just a matter of just identifying each invention to separate it, right? Like this was my first invention, so I name it 0 or 1, depending on the sciences. I name it 1 because it was my first one. So, the second one I'll name 2, third one 3. Y'all get it, right? Y'all get it. I don't think I have to keep going about that. But it identifies, numbers, things like numbers, serial numbers, VIN numbers, different numbers, right? They're there to identify,
Franky with Dr. Vegapunk and Bulma with her dad, Dr. Breath, both of whom are doctors, by the way. Both of these old dudes made legendary inventions. Vegapunk with Lineage Factor, Dr. Brief with his capsules. Early on in the series, Bulma was wearing a jacket with a star on too, so you can see what I'm saying by now for sure. Back to the theory though. Through the One Piece story, you can see many connections between Franky and MADS. Before all this, we saw in the story that Franky attempts to stop the sea train from transporting Tom to Eni's lobby, something you would assume is impossible for a normal human. But something interesting does happen. He actually managed to stop the train for a moment. A pretty insane feat, especially without dying. Nonetheless, he still got absolutely smashed by it immediately after, but this is where the magic happens. Franky, on one of his last breaths, sees a ship appearing next to him. It's a very strange, technologically advanced ship. We can even see dials similar to what we've seen in Nell's cover story in the moon. Also, look how Franky mentions his body. He talks about it being hot, like he's overheating, and he also compares his body to wasted machinery. He states, "Useless body of mine," which is further evidence Franky was already part machine. And furthermore, this chapter is called Reactivate, or in some versions, Resurrection. Why would such a strange and technological ship be so conveniently near Franky when he was about to die? Well, maybe because this was one of the ships of the MADS fleet. A ship that could have even carried the MADS crew at one point. Sounds crazy, but check this out.
I like that. I don't know. If you kind of look at it, you got the cannon holes, right? You got the cannon holes on both of them. I mean, the little, I don't know what these little rectangular things are. It's like two of them near the middle, right? On the bottom. They look like doors, right? They're not, you don't see them on the other ship. So that's kind of a iffy one, right? So it don't look one for one exactly the same, but again, you know, maybe the designs Oda sometimes Kaido doesn't, the Kaido we got in Wano in like post time skip and all that does not look the same as the Kaido from the beginning of the story, right? Like it's two different character designs, right? So maybe it could just be like a change in design from the ship. But interesting point nonetheless, though.
Look at the aesthetics of the ship. It looks very advanced, almost Vegapunk-like, and it looks similar to the ship that we see in the cover page of 1069, titled "All Things Are Brought Into This World with Hope," possibly suggesting that Franky was born or made on this ship from a specific hope or aspiration. Maybe that's also why, when he gets on the boat, this reunion is what makes him say that it's a really calming place for him. If that was the ship where he grew up, it would make sense why Oda would include this sentiment. A ship like this would require profound technological skill and knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, being chased by the world government for illegal experiments is very pirate-like behaviour, and a ship is the perfect way to constantly keep evading the world government, and stay on the move at the same time. Right, let's quickly look at other members of the MADS fleet, and it will soon become clear this seems to be common already. So you got Queen's ship, you got Caesar's ship, which is a super interesting design, and you've got German's 66 ship, which escaped the witch hunt. Also, look at what MADS was researching around the same time. We found out the research team were lawless, a pirate trait for sure, and were working on research and development of high-tech weaponry. Strange considering that's Franky's speciality, even as a kid. And look at what they discovered while they were on that ship, the blueprints to life itself. A living organism's lineage factor, the same thing that Judge used on Sanji and his brothers to make them modified humans. Franky might have been their first time experimenting on a human with the lineage factor. Franky may have originally even been born or made on that ship. So bearing in mind Franky has no medical knowledge, I think
Franky was born or made on that ship. I mean, Franky, like, how do you turn into a cyborg, right? Like, we know Franky is a cyborg, but never mind. Erase what I just said, because we do know Kuma was turned from a man to a cyborg. So I guess, yes, it would make sense for Franky to be mostly organic and then turn to a cyborg, at least in the logic of One Piece. So scratch what I was about to say. But if he was already somewhat like not a normal individual, normal human anyway, like he was always cyborg, right? Like he was always a cyborg or clone or something, you know, Like, let's say if he was made on a MADS ship, him being able to, like refix itself, and it would make sense. It would make more sense, because turning from a human to a cyborg and doing it yourself, like pretty much turning yourself into a cyborg. That's a little weird. Like, I'm not saying you can't be turned into a cyborg, but doing the process yourself, going from man to cyborg, but you doing it, that just seems a little like how do you do that? I would think you have to be put to sleep, you know what I'm saying, in order to be worked on and all that stuff. Hey, Franky a beast. Shout out to Franky, bro. Shout out to Franky, because he is on another level if he's able to turn himself out. Being heavily injured, he turns himself into a cyborg. Just saying, bro. Just saying.
I think the reason Franky managed to do what he did on this particular ship was because he was already a modified human, maybe even modified by similar technology to what we see on the boat. So when Iceberg says Franky's crazy to the core, he could actually be pretty on point with that. We also see Den foreshadowing this when he asks Franky if one of his ancestors was also a robot. Also, the cover to chapter 548 shows different scientific creations and inventions, and Franky is on there too. He's the only person on there, which, it's a big hint from Oda. To tie all this together, let's look at the timeline. Franky was found in 1498 when he was 10 years old, after which he lived in Water 7's scrapyard. I think it's possible Franky was abandoned at Water 7 by his parents deliberately, probably to protect him from being discovered by someone such as the world government. This is because he was a cyborg already at this point, making him sought after technology, and it also ties in around the same time MADS disbanded. We see Water 7 has numbers similar to the MADS members and is itself a very technical scientific.
Yeah, I do think think that Franky already being a cyborg makes sense, because like it's hard for me to believe that Franky went from human to cyborg on, like, he did it himself, heavily injured and everything. Like, like, I would think in order to do that type of stuff, you would be doing operations on yourself that would require for you to be asleep. You know what I mean? Because it would, like, the pain would be excruciating. The pain, and if you're in a lot of pain, how are you going to be accurate with your installations if the pain and you winching, and you know what I'm saying? That's part of the reason why they put you to sleep when they do operation on you, because first of all, it would suck. It would suck to be operated on while you're awake. It would suck, but also, for them, it's easier because you're not moving. You wouldn't be moving. You wouldn't be like jumping or anything. Because you know how sometimes if like you feel a little pain, you'll jump or something. So you wouldn't be doing any of that if you're like put to sleep, with like some anesthesia or something. So it's just fine. It's just hard for me to just say that Franky turned. Now, if let's say he was already a cyborg and he fixed himself, that would make sense, right? Like, if he just fixed himself, that would make more sense to me. But I mean, but either way, if he did turn himself to a cyborg again, like, which that's kind of what we're led to believe, right? That was implied by the story. So that's kind of the narrative I kind of gotta roll with. It's a impressive feat in itself. You know what I mean?
Creation. So there's likely connections between MADS and Water 7 also. Water 7's design, as seen from the map, looks pretty identical to the soldier docks system that Franky designed for the Sunny. So Franky and Water 7 are also connected. This would explain why he was abandoned there. It also seems pretty strange that he just so happens to be found by Tom, someone who curiously has a symbol on his shoulder, matching symbols in the story we've seen so far relating to the Eight Kingdoms. Also, later on in the story, Franky is saved by what I think is a MADS ship, guided by either a Klabauterman or a Viva card powered.
It's a sun tattoo, but I don't think it's like it's not like the sun pirate tattoo. So I mean, I guess you can't really say he was a sun pirate because yeah, the sun pirate tattoo is a little different if I remember correctly.
Matching symbols in the story we've seen so far relating to the 8 kingdoms. Also, later on in the story, Franky is saved by what I think is a MADS ship, guided by either a Klabauterman or a Vivre card-powered sort of technology that guides itself to Franky whenever he's close to dying. Klabautermans have ties to ships, and ships have ties to Water 7, so the fact this happens around there, I think is a strong possibility. The history does seem to align well. Additionally, an interesting connection is that Vegapunk went to O'Hara 22 years ago, which we discovered recently in a flashback, which by the way occurred right as CP0 arrived at Egghead to suppress knowledge. Franky's backstory just so happens to also be set 22 years ago, and again triggered by CP9 going there to suppress knowledge. This is a really nice parallel between the two arcs and kind of ties in Franky and Robin's backstories also. We also see this again on this page in chapter 490, where only they told something about their origins back to back as well, so there's likely more to their relationship, particularly when you include Tom's fear of a girl from O'Hara and his brother Den being a sea forest researcher with clover tattoo and logo on his body, possibly being tied to O'Hara. We are seeing a lot of backstories from characters coming from the South Blue recently, and I believe we'll have some big lore drops coming soon. Stussy, Kuzan, Sol, Franky, Kid, Bonnie, Kuma, Lindbergh, all of them lot for example. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and sub and leave a comment. Show some.
Hey man, shout out to Den Den Kushi. I already liked the video. Did I watch this? I don't think I watched this, but yeah, shout out to Den Den Kushi. Interesting theory, you know. Like I do believe that there could be some connection with Franky and Mads. I don't know if his parents were part of it, but it would make sense if his parents were were scientists, right? And maybe they did work with Mads. You know, like we don't really know much about Franky's parents. We know pretty much everything after Franky split from his parents, like when he met up with Tom and everything. That's as far back as the history with Franky that we got. So maybe Oda is saving something with his parents, with Franky's parents. Maybe we learn that his parents were part of MADS, you know, because maybe Franky's parents weren't important, but if we haven't gotten anything from him now and Oda does give us something, maybe that's most likely because he was saving them, because they were very important. And them being part of MADS would make sense, because MADS was also they were more like a rebel, they were like a rebel science group, or a rogue, right? Like they were a rogue science group. So maybe Mads had ties to the underworld, which would make sense because maybe that's how they get their resources. You know what I'm saying? Because if they went to, like, let's say some towns and try to get resources the official way, maybe that could get them into trouble, right? Because people start asking questions. Why do you need this specific item, right? Somebody called the world government. They're asking for items that we shouldn't be carrying, right? That are illegal to carry. You know, scientists, they need certain, they need certain material to do what they do, right? And a lot of material that they might need might not be legal. You know what I mean? But science, for the sake of science, and that's part of why they were rogue anyway, because they might have been doing stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing. So I would think that Mads probably had connections with the underworld as well. I would think Franky does have ties to the underworld. I don't know if that's because of his parents or because he was on his own for so long that he ended up being in certain circles, right? Certain, not too good circles. So he was able to connect himself with the underworld. But if his connection with the underworld came from being around his parents, right? And we could assume that Mads probably have connection with the underworld as well. Maybe his parents were connected with Mads, even if they didn't work in Mads specifically. Maybe they knew about him. Maybe they worked with him before. I don't know, but I am curious to know more about to learn more about Franky, and I hope we do maybe get some more about Franky's like like past, but like further than the past that we know of when it comes to Tom. You know, I would like that. That would be pretty dope. But yeah, you guys let me know what y'all think. Would y'all like to see a Franky flashback talking about like before the whole him meeting Tom and everything? Like, would y'all want to learn more about Franky and possibly learn more about his parents and their history? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, that is the video, y'all. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Also, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Like I said, leave your comments down below. Let me know if what you agree with, what you disagree with, what did I miss. Also, follow me on Twitch so you can engage with me in real time. Follow me. If you want to connect with me directly, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And make sure you join the Discord. Come be a part of my community. If you want to send me content like what we watched today, I have a channel specifically meant for that. If you want to be a part of a future discussion stream, gotta be a Discord member. And if you just want to chat with me, that's going to be the best place. That's the place I engage the most. So make sure you join the Discord. All of these will be in the description box, as well as the video we watched today. So yeah, y'all make sure y'all go show Den Kushi some love. But yeah, that's all I got. It's your boy Sean P. the Bluff God, and I'm out of here. Peace.